live on Facebook. So it looks like we just became live on Facebook. So one more time, welcome to the program. This is Roots Connections. And this evening, we are discussing the prospects for the Dominican economy for 2022. So once again, we are tapping into the expertise of our brothers and sisters at home and abroad. And let me just take a minute to commend the two gentlemen who are joining us today, both economists by trade, Dr. Thomson Fontaine, as well as Mr. Kent Vital. I want to commend them for their service to country because this is the third night in a row that they've been on one of these programs of national importance. So I want to commend them for being here, and we say good evening to Mr. Kent Vital and Dr. Thomson Fontaine as they unmute their mics and they say good evening to the audience. Dr. Fontaine, your camera is off.
Yeah. Well,
Kent, good evening to you.
Yes, good evening. Good evening. It's a pleasure being here. Earlier on, you asked whether I still have voice, but yeah, I still have voice. But let me just take the opportunity to say hello to Ronald Lander. He was supposed to have been here with us, and I understand he's not so well. Mm-hmm. And Ronald Lander is also an economist and is very passionate, and I really look forward. There's some stuff that we've got to work on together. I'll contact him pretty soon. But sorry, he can't be here tonight.
Right, absolutely. Dr. Fontaine, can you hear us? I think he might be having some technical problems considering he's all the way out there in South Sudan, Africa. So we have another PAX program for you this evening. However, just a quick programming note to accommodate the Calypso tent this evening. Our program will be, unfortunately, 1 hour, but we can still unpack quite a bit of information during that time. So again, a pleasant good evening to everyone, to our Q95 listeners at home and abroad, as well as a good evening to our Facebook Live audience and our YouTube audience who are joining us for this important conversation. Don't forget to share the live, let everyone know that we're here, tag a few friends, invite them to the conversation. We always look forward to engaging with you via Facebook Live and via your phone calls later during the program. So again, don't forget, we are also live on YouTube on Q95 Radio. So lots of different options for the ways you can join us this evening. And of course, we say good evening to Mr. G and the Q95 family, Lambi, who's on the console, and Sherwin Norris, who keeps us connected in so many different ways on these various platforms. And again, don't forget, if you missed any of our episodes, for example, the last time we were here, we talked about the digital economy and what is in it for you. You can catch all our prior programs on q95da.com. And with that, if Dr. Thomson Fontaine can unmute his mic, we say a pleasant good evening as we see that he just joined us. Dr. Fontaine, if you can hear us, I think there's a delay. So as soon as he hears us, I'm sure he will chime in. So this evening, again, if you're just joining us, we're talking about the prospects for the Dominican economy for 2022 and beyond. So what exactly are we looking at this evening? We are looking at what is the state of the Dominican economy as we begin 2022. Was there any growth in any of the sectors of the economy prior to 2022? Were there any missed opportunities along the way in terms of growing the economy? And where do we go from here? What are the challenges we face as we look to improve the prospects of growing the economy? And while you're listening to our audience on Facebook, as well as our radio audience, yes, while we're having this discussion, I too want you to be a part of the conversation. So I want you to be thinking along the line of what makes a healthy, productive economy, what makes a robust economy, and what may be missing in Dominica, what may be missing in that formula to have a more improved economy in Dominica. So I'm looking forward to your responses on this question as we go through the evening. So Kent Thomson, what is the state of the Dominican economy as we begin 2022?
Yeah. Okay, well, since there's a delay, maybe I will start. There's some good things, but really and truly, I will start with the good things, but I will just use 4 words to describe it. And it's not because I want to be critical or anything like that, but it's just the reality. So if you talk about the state of the Dominican economy right now, I will use 4 words: weak, still very vulnerable, lack of dynamism, and lack of buoyancy. I can explain all of these words as we go along, but let us start with the overall economy, and but let me point to some of the some of the potential that exists in the economy. We have, for instance, our brightest hope maybe is in the manufacturing sector, in the sense that we have quite a few, well, not quite a few players who are relatively successful, maybe still medium size, small by world standards, but medium size, and have quite a bit of potential. I'm talking about people like Benjo Simas. There is this gentleman doing meringue, flour, and a couple other things seem to be doing good. And there are a number of promising players. Some of them are into herbal teas. Some of them, I know they are persons with the wines. And I know there are quite a few. I see a lot of gentlemen on the road doing juices. I met a lady recently that is into juices and so on. So it looks like the entrepreneurial spirit is there among some of our people, and I think that is good. And in spite of the situation that we are faced with, many of those persons with promising with promise, they do need some support. Like too often, they need capital, and all that there is for them is to approach the bank, and sometimes they need a different kind of resources, equity capital, and so on. So they need to be supported in that way. Others need to be supported through organizational efforts. For instance, I see many guys or many persons doing the same kinds of things. And I like the entrepreneurial spirit, of course, but sometimes we need to bring them together. We need to get that spirit of pooling resources, pooling investments, and we have to build that new culture of doing things together. And of course, marketing is another thing, and we have a diaspora who can help us with that. So I see some things among the people that we can draw on and we can build on. There are 1 or 2 other things going on, but what I would maybe want to do is start sector by sector and just go through quickly where we are. Yes. But the truth is, generally, we are starting with a weak economy in 2022. Agriculture, lack of markets, low production, and there's a cycle there between marketing. Sometimes people don't produce because they don't have the markets. Right? When you get the markets, you start the production. But there's that cycle, unfortunately, that we are faced with. So we're not in a very good place when it comes to this. We've still been affected by COVID-related logistics issues. We have had a World Bank program that I think missed the boat. I have questioned and asked constantly, where is the marketing element? I am yet to get an answer. Maybe there is an answer, but I don't know. But clearly, we are not starting in a very good place. Farmers are struggling to get markets, and therefore are choosing not to produce. Recently, I had the incident where I was looking into some marketing of agricultural produce, and in some of the work we have started to do, the people are asking, okay, what is it that you have? But then I realize farmers have not been producing. They can, but they have not been because there are no markets. So we're in a weak state. So we've got to get to the point where we build back the confidence of farmers. And there are some things we'll be doing. I'm trying to shorten it because I know we are limited time.
Yes. And I'm still waiting to see if Dr. Fontaine can hear us so he can chime in, but I'm not sure. I WhatsApp him to alert him that we're on and to see if he can join in. So as soon as he's able to, I'm sure he's joining. But I like where you started from, Kent, in terms of what is actually going right, because I think we always have to inspire hope. And Dr. Fontaine, jump in at any point. unmute your mic and jump in at any point, because I know you have some technical challenges.
Kent,
Out there
what is actually going
Africa.
right? Because I think we always have to inspire hope. And Dr. Fontaine, jump in at any point.
Okay, well, thank you.
Mic and jump in at any point, because I know you have some technical challenges.
Yes. Salut. A very good night. A very good night to you, Simone, and to Kent, and to your many listeners spread across the globe. It's an honor to be with you guys tonight. I feel like I'm very, very far away with that delay. You know, I feel like I am truly thousands of miles away from home. But it's great to be here, nonetheless. And I'm very happy to talk about Dominica's economy. And, you know, even before I start, we have a very interesting byline with Kent, you know. Kent, we've been good buddies for a long time. And I taught statistics and economics at the Thomson College. And when I left in 1993, Kent replaced me as a lecturer at Thomson College in economics and statistics. And also when I left the statistics department as a statistician in 1993, Kent replaced me in that position as well. So we've been tagging along, and it's really good to be sharing this program with him. We were supposed to have had Ron Lando with us, but unfortunately he's not able to join. So we hope next time in the second round that Ron will be able to come along with us. But I wanted to add to what Kent was saying in terms of the economy, but look at it on a regional perspective. I think it's important to give a regional perspective for us to understand where we are, where we sit with regards to the rest of the Caribbean countries as far as economic growth is concerned. I've been able to pull some data because for the past 2 years, I have been hired by the U.S. State Department to really provide a short course for their diplomats. So all the diplomats from the U.S. going to take up positions in Suriname, in Guyana, in Barbados, in Jamaica, for the Caribbean islands. We give them an orientation into the economies of the Caribbean. So I'm very well prepared to look at the regional perspective. And so I'm going to start with the rates of growth that we've seen in various islands over the past several years. And I've broken it up into basically two periods. I've broken it up into the looking at the average rate of growth between 2010 and 2014. Then I looked at the average rate of growth between 2015 and 2019, and then the estimated growth in 2020. Now, I'm talking about estimated growth, and what exactly do we mean? What we try to do is we try to measure what we call the way the economy grows over time, the level of economic activity. There is a certain methodology that is employed in trying to register what we call the value of goods and services that is produced within the country. So that's what we're talking about. When we talk about gross domestic product, we are referring to the total value of goods and services produced in the economy. And the way in which we do that is that you break up the economy into sectors. So for example, you look within agriculture and you estimate what was the total output of agriculture produce in a particular year. Then you look at construction. What was the value of the services? Then you look at government services, education, and so on. You look at the value of your imports, of your exports, and all of that is combined into what we call the gross domestic product. So when we talk about growth, that's what we are referring to. Now there are two elements to this. You have what we refer to as the nominal value of growth. So we just take the total output, for example, in agriculture. So I say, let's assume, for example, that we produce 1,000 tons of bananas in 2020. So you take 1,000 tons of bananas times $10. Okay, so that is $10,000. So your value, that is called your gross value, would be $10,000. Right now, when you start to make the comparison between the different years, so I said, for example, in 2010, I produced 10,000. In 2020, I produced 10,000 tons of bananas. I get a certain value. By $10, that's 10,000. in 2021, let's assume that instead of producing 10,000, I produce 15,000. Right? So now I produce 15,000 tons of bananas, and let's assume the price remains the same at $10. Then that is $150,000 in the value. So I would just have moved from 100,000 to 150,000. Now that is in the gross value of my gross domestic product. But a critical part of it, you notice there are two components to it. The actual production, what I am producing in terms of the tons of bananas, and then there is the price component. So what we do is that we remove what we call the price impact or the price effect. So you remove, there's a process where you take up the price effect. So you only look at what the production, because your real, that's why we call it real GDP. Your real value means your nominal value less the price impact. So for example, because my price moved from $10 to $15, then although I had an increase in my nominal GDP, but my real value remained the same because I produced 10,000. I produced 10,000 tons in 2020 and 10,000 tons in 2021. So there is no increase in real value, but because the price changed, there is an increase in the nominal value. So I hope that is clear. So when we talk about real GDP growth, we remove the price impact. Because what's really important is how much tons, how many more tons I was able to produce, how much more tons I was able to produce. So if, for example, in 2020, I produced 10,000 tons. In 2021, I produced 12,000 tons of bananas. It means I have a real growth in my bananas because I've increased my output from 10,000 tons to 12,000 tons. I wanted to spend some time to explain that because very often, sometimes we come on the radio and we just talk about GDP, we talk about growth, and people might not understand exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah,
so really what we're trying to do is to measure the country's overall output, because that is that's what we refer to as real GDP. So what we now do, and it's also good because the methodology is consistent across countries, we can now compare ourselves with what happened in St. Lucia. So if, for example, in 2021, going back to our bananas, if we produce 2,000 tons more in 2021 compared to St. Lucia, which only produced 1,000 tons more bananas, then we would have done better than St. Lucia because we had a better output. And I can now compare my growth in Dominica to that of St. Lucia. Mm-hmm. So on that basis, that is what we have measured. And we are looking now at the various countries. So between the period of 2010 to 2014, Dominica's real growth, our actual output, increased by 0.6%. So we had a 0.6% growth. Between 2015 and 2019, the growth was 0%. In other words, we had no real increase. If we were producing in 2015, to use the banana example, if we were producing 1,000 tons of bananas, we are still producing 1,000 tons of bananas. All right. If we were constructing 10 new homes in 2015, we are still producing 10 homes in 2020. So we have not grown. The economy has not done much over the past 5-6 years. Now let's compare that with Antigua. Between 2010 and 2014, Antigua grew by minus 0.6%. There was a negative growth, but they rebounded between 2015 and 2019. So they had a 5% real GDP growth. So Antigua, 5%. Then we look at Grenada. Grenada grew in that same 5-year period between 2015 and 2019. Grenada grew by 4.4%. Guyana, 3.5%. Haiti, 0.8%. Jamaica, 1.2%. St. Kitts and Nevis, 1.5%. St. Lucia, 2.3%. St. Vincent, 1.4%. So we see all of our neighboring countries registered real growth between 2015 and 2019. But what happened to Dominica? Dominica, 0. So that kind of gives you an indication as to where we are vis-a-vis the rest of the Caribbean.
Yeah, and I think And I think that is very important. And because we have a limited time this evening, Thomson, you joined us a little late, so we only have 1 hour for the program this evening. I want us to jump straight into the challenges, because I think, Thomson, you did a great job of setting the stage of where we are right now with the economy. So let's kind of just jump right into the challenges that we are facing in terms of growing the economy, and just challenges to the region in general. Because one of the things that I noticed that we talk a lot about in private, but I think it needs to be discussed more openly in the public, is that we're noticing that a lot of the international banks are withdrawing from Dominica and the Caribbean region. And I think that has implications for our economic development in Dominica and throughout the Caribbean. And I also think that it speaks to other issues. So let's kind of just jump into the challenges in terms of growing the economy, but in terms of the challenges economically for the Caribbean region as well. Kent?
Yes, there are quite a few challenges, and we're jumping a lot of stuff. But some of the biggest challenges in the Caribbean are as follows. Institutions is one of those. Institutions, in some cases, the level of crime is quite a challenge in many of the countries. Dominica is maybe somewhere in the middle and compared to the rest of the Caribbean, but we can't get there quickly because of what we see going on in our country, the lack of social cohesion. But in terms of other areas of institutional challenges, your political governance in Dominica is one of the greatest challenges. We have a crisis of governance, as Sheldon Gregoire puts it, and I fully agree with him. That is one of our biggest challenges in Dominica. Our governance, if you look at the fact, what Thomson was talking about, the fact that we haven't grown. And I would actually go back 20 years, because somebody will always argue that in the last 5 years we have had Maria and we have had those things. But really and truly, if you go back 20 years, you will see Dominica have had the slowest growth. The same story Thomson is talking about when you remove the challenges is the same story. We have had the slowest growth. And I'm telling you, the big reason for that. So once you take off Maria and you take off those challenges we have had, COVID and so on, the biggest challenge is governance, poor governance, the inability of our government to bring in the kinds of skills that Dominica do have people in the diaspora at home and abroad, skills that we are not accessing, poor development planning, corruption. These are some of our greatest challenges. Given time challenges, I'm not going to spend too much time on each one. Dominica specifically also has infrastructure challenges. That's why the construction of an international airport will be a good thing for us. All the other countries have gone ahead. The challenge we have with Dominica is the corruption involved in trying to get us there. And we don't have a lot of time, so we know that issue very well. Air access related to that, the fact that we had air access from increased flights from, or a flight, more regular flight from America to Dominica is a good thing. And we have to be in a position to maintain that kind of flight. But that was traditionally part of the challenge we have, and will be a challenge if we do not do the right thing to ensure that we maintain and we grow access, because it's critical for the growth of our tourism industry. So our infrastructure challenges has a lot right now, specifically for Dominica, to do with air access. International airport is part of that. We need to do that, but the challenges of financing and the corruption involved in doing it is a major challenge as a country we have to overcome in doing that. Building capacity, building skill sets. Yes. Oh, okay. Building capacity is a major thing. We don't seem to have the right people leading our organizations. We don't seem to have people with the right sets of skills, the right sets of experience. And there are many people out there, but again, because of the first challenge, which is the institutional challenge, the governance challenge, we are not bringing on board the right skills. But going forward, as we get new governance, we have to access skills from more people everywhere. Skills to build strategies, skills to manage and to invest and so on. So these are some of the things. We need skills. If you want to move our country forward, we have to find the right skill sets so that we can move towards becoming internationally competitive. And we have to begin to train our people differently. We have to begin to train people with an entrepreneurial spirit, train people to be innovative, to be creative thinkers. These are the challenges that bedevil the Caribbean. The Caribbean, we have grown based on our primary resources, our tourism, our sandstone and so on, our agriculture and so on, but we have been struggling to make the leap to come or to do as well as developed countries. Making that leap requires having higher levels of skill sets, people who can understand the sciences better and can apply, and we can train them to better emulate science and technology, better apply science and technology, better innovate, and so on. So that's a major thing going forward in the new kind of world in which we are. Access to capital is a challenge going forward. Again, we have sought to solve that through the CBI, and the current government seems to think that's the only way to solve it. CBI has its challenges from a national point of view, from a sovereignty point of view, that we have to look at very seriously. But accessing appropriate finance is a critical thing going forward. All of the entrepreneurs.
Do you think that the withdrawal of the international banks has any implications for this, the access to capital that you speak of?
It will have a big implication.
So Simone, if I can comment on the international bank
Yes.
question that you posed. I'm sorry if I probably interrupt. But
No,
as you said,
fine.
we have this delay, so I'm not sure if I'm
Yes.
talking over you guys or if I am free. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the question that you posed. This is a very critical one. We are part of a global village, so to speak, and what that means effectively is that we cannot do without the international community or the regional community. Dominica is an island, but Dominica is not an island. No man is alone. And so because of that, because we rely so heavily on the banking system for trade, for commerce, just for regular transfers of remittances from abroad in support, families that support their families in Dominica, this critical infrastructure enables us to trade in goods and services. So, for example, the clothes that we buy, the shoes that we wear, the cars that we buy in Dominica, without the international banking system, none of this is possible. And for many years, the international banks were part of this fabric. What we're seeing now is that the international banks, they're running, you can point we, running as if they are in complete fright, they're completely out of it. And the reason for this is very simple. Dominica has been identified as a country that is involved in money laundering activities, in activities that are contrary to what is expected of an upstanding country. And what this has translated to is the banks running. Let me explain this, because that's very important. People say, well, why are the banks leaving? They're leaving because in the United States, every single transaction that comes to Dominica, whether it originates in Europe, whether it originates in China, in Africa, into Dominica, goes through the US banking system. And the US has told the banks like Barclays, Royal Bank, Scotia Bank, they've told them that you must know your customer. You must know the people that you're dealing with. If you don't know the people that you're dealing with and they are caught laundering money, for example, or they are caught breaking the banking rules, guess what? We are going to punish you, the bank. At one point, for example, the Bank of America, which does the corresponding relations for some banks in the Caribbean, they were threatened a fine of $3 billion by the US authorities. And the US authorities are saying, if you don't obey, if you don't agree, if you don't know who you're dealing with, then we are going to impose those fines. Now, if you compare a $3 billion fine to a couple $1 million of business they're doing in Dominica, it's a no-brainer. They will not take this chance. So they are running from Dominica. And this could have implications for us, because if we are shut out of the international banking system, then that is all mass. Imports immediately stopped, exports immediately stopped, remittances into Dominica, unless people will have to go back. You remember the days when people used to put money in envelopes and post to Dominica? We'll probably have to go back to those days, because that is where we are. So it's a very serious thing, and it's something that we must take very, very seriously and give it the interest that it deserves.
Yes, and thank you for that, Thomson. But, in my mind, is it a fait accompli? Is there anything that can be done to even, reverse what is going on? Or has it been already done and there's nothing we can do about that? Because the banks have, in fact, left. We've seen Bank of Nova Scotia leave. We've seen Royal Bank leave. We've seen Barclays Bank has also left the country. So is our fate already sealed? I guess that's the question that I'm asking.
Okay, that's a very good question, Simone, in terms of whether it's a fait accompli. No, it is not a fait accompli. There are things that the banks have been asked to do, and it has translated into more hassle. For us, the ordinary customer, what you see is more hassle. That translates to more hassle. So you go to open, for example, a bank account in Dominica today. Before, you could just go in, you know the bank teller, you'll get the account open, or you just show an ID. Now they want your birth certificate, they want your passport, they want references, so it translates to more hassle, because the banks, the onus is on the banks, that if they're going to deal with this. For example, if I do any transaction, any sizable transaction, anything above $1,000, for example, I get a call from the bank. Is that you? What was that for? Who are you sending it to? What is your relationship with that person? So it relates to a real hassle for us, but the banks have to do that, and that's how they can preserve that relationship. So we have and let me just add, and I probably did not make that point very clear, in that each of the banks in Dominica, each of the local banks, they have a corresponding relationship. So, for example, Scotiabank would have had a corresponding relationship with Scotiabank overseas, or Scotiabank in the US, or Scotiabank in Canada. The National Bank, I believe, has a corresponding relationship with Chase Bank in New York. The First Caribbean, I believe, has one with Morgan Stanley. So they have those relationships, and they have to guard this. So what we see is increasing scrutiny of the membership of the banks, increasing scrutiny of the transactions that go through the bank. So any bank, any transaction of any sum of any large value, you will get queries, because if, God forbid, the US authorities find out that these transactions are really fraudulent or linked to money laundering, then they could shut down that relationship. But thankfully, it is not to that point is yet. The banks have been given the task of getting to know their customer and doing everything in their power to prevent money laundering.
Yes, thank you very much for that. Kent, I want to come over to you, but before we do, just a reminder that you're tuned in to Roots Connections on Q95, and our guests this evening are Dr. Thomson Fontaine in South Sudan, Africa, and Mr. Kent Vital in Dominica, two very esteemed Dominican economists, and we are talking about the prospects for the Dominica economy for 2022 and beyond, and we've just been exploring some of the challenges. So, Kent, anything you want to add to this conversation? And I think we just lost Kent for a minute. So Thomson, can you hear me? Because I want to talk now about how do we move forward, and the question goes out to the Facebook audience as well, in terms of what is the missing part of the formula for improving Dominica's economy. We see a lot of focus on, building hotels and tourism, but we don't see as much focus on other aspects of the economy: manufacturing, technology, knowledge, trade, communication. There are so many other things that make for a robust economy that I see that, we don't hear as much. Maybe it's going on in the background and there's only the public focus on the hotels. But in my mind, we hear a lot about the hotels and, potential opportunities in tourism, but we don't hear about the other sectors of the economy as much. So why is that the case, Thomson? Why is that the case, and how do we move forward to improve the economy?
That's an excellent question, Simone. That's an excellent question, and I'm hearing you clearly, thankfully. Before I answer this question in terms of how we move forward, let me answer very quickly. Somebody posed the question online asking what is the per capita. In other words, if you take Dominica's GDP divided by the population, what is that value? It is roughly 8,000. It's about 7,900 US dollars. So it's not too bad. It turns out to be about 16, 17,000 EC dollars. Now, coming back to the question that you asked, Simone, this is important, and I will preface my remarks like this. We know this age-old story of Moses delivering the people of Israel. And when Moses was in the wilderness and trying to get the deliverance of the people of Israel, he had nothing. And then God asked him, really, what do you have? He said, all I have is this rod. And we saw the miracles and wonders that were done with this rod, including opening up of the Red Sea to allow the people to go. I think that's what we have to think of Dominica's prospects. We have to ask ourselves, what do we have as a country? What do we have? We have exceptionally fertile land, number one, which means we are primed for agriculture production. In fact, if you go back, I've been looking at the economic history of Dominica going back to the period of slavery. And over the years, we've grown vanilla, coffee, limes, cocoa, sugarcane, you name it, bananas. And we've always done exceptionally well. On a program last that I indicated that in 1974, our exports were the value of $270 million into these dollars. What that tells me is that we have agriculture that we can focus on. So that's number one, agriculture. Within this agriculture, we can have a diversified type of production. So not only can we have the crop agriculture. When last I checked, Dominica was growing as much as 65 different crops. We can focus on any one of those crops and make money out of those by adding value to it through agro-processing, for example. Then we have the essential oils industry. Dominica has the best bay oil in the world, bar none. Bay oil is a critical component in all of the perfumes. You buy a little, 10-ounce bottle of perfume for a few $100s. And particularly in every single perfume, bay oil is a key component. So we have the essential oils in industry. We have, for example, I have seen in Dominica, we make beautiful soaps using mesemawi and using glory cedar and so on, things that we knew as children was exceptionally good for the skin. So we can have a diversified product. That's our rod in our hands, agriculture. What else? We can look at our geothermal potential, in fact, our renewable potential, not only a geothermal, but we also have the sun, we can do solar. And the reason for this is that if we're able to develop those, we can have a thriving manufacturing sector. Because one of the major components of any manufacturing is the cost of electricity, the cost of production, the cost to turn the turbines, to turn the engines and so on. But if you can focus on renewables, you can reduce your costs, and furthermore, it is free. Whether it's wave technology, whether it's solar, whether it is the geothermal potential. So we can develop those and have a manufacturing sector. So that's number two. Our third rod that we can have is tourism, or tourism product. Dominica has a unique tourism product, and we can just look to Costa Rica next door. Costa Rica has a very similar product to Dominica in the fact that they have been promoting ecotourism. They're green like Dominica, they're beautiful like Dominica with waterfalls and so on, and they have done remarkably well. If you look at what Costa Rica is making out of ecotourism compared to us, it's like 1,000 to 1 in terms of dollars. So we can do it. I will just look at those three areas: agriculture, manufacturing, tourism. Those three areas can provide employment for every single Dominican who wants to work. And not only that, it can attract people into Dominica. We have a problem, we say, of the size of the population. Dominica is some 70,000 people. Overnight, you can have an increase in the population of Dominica because people will be coming back from St. Martin, from Guadeloupe. St. Lucians will be coming to Dominica. Vincentians will be coming to Dominica. People will leave the United States. They will leave Canada, and they will come to work in Dominica. So I believe, we have missed that opportunity, sadly, Simon. We've missed this opportunity to work with what we have. You notice I'm not even talked about the sale of passports, because to me that is finite. That has a time period that will come to an end at some point. It may be this year, it may be 10 years from now, but it will come to an end. But our land resource that is renewable, the manufacturing, we can do it, and when I talk about manufacturing, I'm thinking, for example, of fishing. We have some of the best fishing lands in the entire Caribbean in terms of the richness for the blue dolphin, the marlin, different fish that is produced in our waters. That is just there. Fish get old in Dominican waters and die because we're not harvesting them, right? So there is an opportunity for us to explore all of this. And that's why, I've been very critical of this government. Everybody knows where I stand with regards to the government. I've been very critical, but I am particularly critical of a government that has not made use of its resources, that have not made use of the things that can, people don't have to be under that kind of stress there in Dominica. Mm-hmm. Dominicans should not have to be getting up and saying, okay, today I'm going to see my prime minister for $100. No, Dominicans should be happy to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm heading to a factory to work. I'm heading somewhere to put together, a computer on an assembly line that I can ship to the Caribbean region. We can get to that point. We are not there, Simone. But that's where we can get to.
And if I might add, thank you so much, Thomson, for that. And if I might add, one of the other aspects that is another missed opportunity is the virtual and the digital economy that seems to have taken over the world because of COVID. And it's very reassuring because, I'm a person of hope. I'm always looking for the positives. And it is wonderful to see how our entertainment industry is embracing the virtual opportunities. I mean, you log into Stardom Tent on a Friday and you see hundreds, almost 1,000 people live. And by the time they've logged off, it's about like 15,000 people are watching. And again, the virtual carnival that I was able to put together with the sponsorship of Q95 and some other really important sponsors who came on, as well as donations, so we can pay the DJs. But that is just one aspect, right? That is only one aspect. Why don't we encourage more of the gig economy? I hear of this program in Dominica, which is the Work Online program, I believe it's called. And then you inquire about it and you find out only 60 people are employed. And I think to myself, why only 60 people? Why not open it up? Give more opportunities so that people who have skills, translation skills, technical skills, who are able to work remotely can liaise with people, entrepreneurs and companies in the US. So unfortunately, we're running very tight with time this evening. So Lambi, I want you to go and give the numbers. But before you do, Kent, I know you were kicked off for a little while. So if you want to chime in, and let's give Kent about 4 minutes, Lambi, and then you can give the numbers. And then Facebook, I am coming to you because I see some great comments on the Facebook Live. Kent?
Yes. When I got kicked off, Thomson was talking about the banking system. Yeah, but I just wanted to say that on that score that this is a Caribbean-wide problem that we are facing as well, and that the issue is the potential loss of corresponding banking relations, and there have been one or two losses, but because of the increased pressure on the banks, because of the increased reporting requirements, it has for some of them it's too much of an hustle for small markets, and that is why we have seen some of them leave the OECS markets. But most of our banks still maintain corresponding banking relations. The thing is now they have got to manage in such a way, our countries, not just Dominica, have to manage in such a way that we follow the rules laid out, so to speak. to avoid losing those relationships. Because if we lose those relationships, it's exactly what Thomson was saying will happen. We won't even be able to send monies to our children overseas who are studying, or persons abroad won't be able to send monies at home. Now, for Dominica, that is very, very important. It's very important because remittances contributes about 7.5% of our GDP, the very GDP Thomson was talking about. Now, compare that to manufacturing, that contributes 2.5% of GDP. Compare that to tourism, that contributes maybe around 1.9% of GDP in 2020. The remittances alone, more important than tourism and manufacturing combined. Imagine getting to a position.
Oh, I hope we're not losing Kent again.
Hello, are we there?
Yes, you're here.
Yes, so that's a very important issue, not just to be, but countries like Dominica make it even worse because of financing of terrorism potential through our bad governance and our bad CBI and money laundering and all of those ills. Countries like Dominica makes it even worse. But it's not just a Dominica problem, it's a regional problem. But the fact is that is one of the challenges we have to overcome going forward, because if we do not maintain those relationships, bringing in investments would be all the more difficult. Bringing in funds from the diaspora would be all the more difficult, and it would make life really difficult. And we are small open economy, we like to use that term, meaning that we depend on trade, we depend on all the good things we spoke about our manufacturers. They must be in a position to export, and if they cannot export, if they cannot bring in the revenues from the export, then it means that their businesses would fail. So that has to be an important thing, but Dominica needs to guard itself to ensure that it do not further contribute to the loss of corresponding banking relationship. It's stable at the moment, but there is the risk still hang over our head. But there are other challenges that we have to overcome as well. We have to empower our communities to participate in their own development, and there's a big space for that. These are things NJAM will be talking about as we go along, but a lot of opportunities for empowering our communities, not just in Dominica. Other Caribbean countries are seeing the need for empowering communities and local government and raising the level of local government and giving those persons a bigger say and a bigger role. We have to reverse negative cultures. We spoke about negative cultures last night on Things Show, but that's a big area. And many other countries like Jamaica and so on and Trinidad, they are recognizing the role of culture. I'm not talking about culture and the usual thing we think of, but the negative attitudes and the cultural things that have been embedded in us, our work attitudes, or the culture of corruption and the kind of institutions we set up to try to reverse those cultures. But these are major hindrances to our development, and we've got to try to reverse this thing. But better organization of our businesses, pulling off resources and pulling for efforts, I mentioned that earlier. And then the image of Dominica has to be prepared. We do not have a good image. That's a major challenge going forward. And I've told the story before of trying to get investments for a particular gentleman, sending it to a friend of mine, and the friend saying, boy, it's not the project, you know. The people I speak to, the bona fide investors who would want to invest, say they would never touch Dominica. Why they would never touch Dominica? Because they understand what's going on. They see what's going on with the governance that we have. That was the major reason that they were given. So we have our image have been decimated. We do not have a good standing out there, unlike what attained on the days like Libra, Eugenia Charles. It has been destroyed, and it's affecting our ability to bring in investments. I'm still doing everything I can to do that, and some people, you know, we according to our negotiation skills, we can overcome that. And you know, sometimes people, if you give them a good business opportunity, they will be able to see that and move on that. But we have to repair that image. Definitely. So these are just some of the other things I wanted to add in terms of the challenges, but I know our time is limited. So let me just leave it there for now.
Yes, and thank you for that contribution, Kent. And certainly that conversation that we're starting this evening about the international banks withdrawing from Dominica and the Caribbean, that is one of those conversations I would like for us to continue exploring, because I think that, you know, it's happening all around us, and for some reason we're not openly acknowledging it, talking about it, and speaking of the implications. Lambi, you can go ahead and give out the phone numbers as we head over and see the great conversations going on Facebook. I think you're muted. We can't hear you, Lambi. We can't hear you. Yeah, so let me head on
Am I
over
on
to
now?
Yes, hold on, Thomson. Let me head over to Facebook because I really want to engage with our audience. And I want to thank everyone on the Facebook Live for your conversation because, you know, you guys stay engaged. You engage each other. So I think that as well is important. So Sandra Norris, good evening. Peony Shirley, good evening from St. Thomas. Great to have you. Jennifer Coffey, Glenda Shillingford, Rosalind Sevre, great to see you. Patricia Fontaine, Adisa Trotter. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank report on GDP growth rate is different from what Dr. Fontaine has reported. Where has Dr. Fontaine got his figures from? So Thomson, you can respond to that in a little while. Viva Mamo, check and see that. I think he just gave the answer to your question, Thomson. Adisa, what is the GPD per capita? I think I heard a response to that. Aizu Lu Katiman, Dr. Fontaine is on point. Thank you for that. Viva Mamo, per ECCB, gross national income per capita in Dominica from 2010 to 2020 in US dollars, income per capita is US dollars 2019, 7,870, and he provides us with some other numbers. So a great back and forth between Viva Mamo and Adisa. So I want to thank you guys for that contribution. Hermelina Watson, my auntie, Auntie Hummy, great to see you. I agree with Dr. Fontaine, 100%. Oh, Bruno, great talk. Let's see, let's delete this person. Well, I can't, but Sherwin, I would encourage you to delete the message from the Samin person because it looks like spam. Houston Roy, good evening all. Let's see, Jess, Brazil, Viva Mamo again, thank you for responding. Patricia Fontaine, great talk, Dr. Fontaine. Molly Ostry, let's see who else is joining us. Jason Fontaine, good night to all the Laplin. Laplin is locked in. All right, let's see who else we have. Great discussion, everyone. Molly Ostry, good program. Adisa, okay, interesting. So as the population decline, GDP per capita increase. And then Pio Pascal, you all are doing great for the country. Ronald B. Charles, great stuff. So Thomson, did you want to respond to anything that was posted about?
Yes, certainly. Thanks a lot, Simone. You know, I may have fallen asleep because it looks like we're coming to the end of the program and I just started talking. You know, listen, nothing excites me as much as talking about prospects within Dominica's economy. Because I have had the advantage, probably I'm more privileged than a lot of other Dominicans. I've had I've been able for the past, I'm looking now, over the past 22 years, I have been able to look at economies in the Caribbean, in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, and I see the elements of what we have in Dominica. So I know what I'm talking about. When I talk about providing jobs and opportunities for all of Dominica, I know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, you got me excited. You started talking about the entertainment industry and people, you know, doing things in communication. For goodness sakes, we speak English. We speak the language of the world, and we speak it well. We have a good communications infrastructure that we can go into IT. So I did not even go down this path. These are like icing on the cake, you know. But I'm saying, Simon, that we need to get serious in Dominica. We need to get serious about the people of Dominica. This government needs to get serious about developing the people of Dominica, developing our human resource, encouraging our human resource, taking care of our human resource. I have not seen those things in Dominica, and that is where I'm coming from. I'm coming from a position where, when there is a change of government, when the opportunity is given, we will show Dominicans how it is done. We will show Dominicans what can be done. You know, I remember in 2014, when I was part of the campaign in Dominica, and we were talking about 3,000 jobs within a few years, in the creation of new jobs. I met a very distinguished Dominican gentleman in Roseau. And he says, you guys are crazy. You don't know what you're talking about. You can never create freedom. I'm like, what? I couldn't believe. You know, people do not believe that you can create 3,000 jobs in Dominica in 5 years in an economy or in a country that has this abundance of resources. I mean, there are countries, all they have is sand. We have more than that. We are way better than that. You know, we have sand plus. You know, so I think it's a matter of how you look at it. And you can tell I am agitated because I know the potential of Dominica. And I'm bringing 22 years of working overseas, internationally. I can tell you in just those areas, in issues that concern growth, that concern development, I can tell you that Dominica has the package. You know, as we say, Dominica has the whole deal. And so it's a question of how we develop it. It's a question of how we go about it, our view. You know, last night, Bernard Ito made the point that Dominica is suffering from the curse, or what we call the oil curse, which is really where you have one resource. In this case, in Dominica, where the focus is on the sale of passports. You forget everything else. It is easy money. You don't have to think. You don't have to dialogue with your people. You don't have to work. You can just you can employ passport vendors in Kabul so they can sell your passport on the street like rice, like yesterday's white rice. You can do that and not have to work. You don't have to think. So it's very easy. It's very comfortable for the government. But I can tell the government of Dominica that you don't really need to think, you know, to develop Dominica and to create jobs for Dominica. The pain, the suffering, the hurt that Dominicans are going through now is totally and completely uncalled for. We have enough. We have the rod, man. We have what it takes to build this country, to create opportunities for this country.
Yeah, and
it does not take no grand vision, Simone, to do that.
Right, and not only that, but we have the expertise of someone like you with 22 years of experience in the business. So this is why we do these programs, because we want to tap into those expertise in order to advance Dominica. So Kent, I want to come over to you. We have about 5 minutes left for your final thoughts and to speak also on what NJAM is doing to move the economy forward in Dominica.
Right. So I just want to say to the person about the data that the data doesn't lie, and it's there for all of us to see. Just go to the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank site, you'll see the GDP data. You can, for yourself, find the population data, and you can calculate per capita GDP. Per capita GDP is an indication, one of the strong indications of how buoyant your economy is. And Dominica is one of the least buoyant economies in the Caribbean. We have actually had a decline in GDP per capita, if not a decline, to about 0% growth in the last 10 years. But if you were to go back for another 10 years, we had one of the slowest growth. Even if we benefited from the decline, as Glyn said, in population, even so, we still had the slowest growth. So we are not buoyant for sure. But the question is, what are we going to do about it, as Thomson was beginning to say? And the fact is, we don't have a government that's focused on exploiting the advantages of Dominica and overcoming the challenges and having good strategy to do this. And we don't have a government that seems to be doing that. So one is we need to have good governance, and we know what they're doing to prevent that from happening. So we have to be determined as a people to ensure that there is free and fair elections. So we have spoken about that in our rally. But the second element is, in the meantime, given how great Dominica is in terms of the land and the natural environment, there are opportunities that can be exploited. What are we going to do? Wait on a government that's not going to do it? Or in the meantime, are we going to begin to look at that? And that is what I've dedicated my own efforts to doing. And I've been preparing, and we're getting there. And unfortunately, that's a big part of what NJAM is all about. That those of us, although it's going to take a sacrifice, although it's going to take us, but we can do it smartly. Those of us who know the potential Dominica has to be developed. And again, let me say, although they have wrecked our image, but I think there's still something we can sell to some investors, and there are things our diaspora understand what Dominica is and understand the contribution that they need to make to develop Dominica. So we have to begin as a people to come and say, in spite of this government, we are going to take advantage. We are going to do the kinds of things to lift Dominica up. And that is what you're going to see a lot of from NJAM, in addition to the fact that we're going to stay on top of the issue of electoral reform, on top of...
Give him a second. Okay.
Indeed. Am I on?
Yes.
Yes, Simon, I can tell you this. It's a pity that we've run out of time already. Somebody sent me a note and told me you're forgetting the ganja economy.
Yes.
Need I say more?
Yes.
So, we, Simon, listen, the opportunities are endless. We've, as I said, the suffering of the Dominican people is needless. It is pointless. There is no reason why we are suffering the way we are in Dominica. And the reason, as Ken rightly pointed out, is because of the leadership of the country. We can do better than what we are doing now as a people.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are much brighter than that. We are much more capable than what we have. I consider these last 2 decades, and that's 20 years, as two lost decades in Dominica. But the darkest time of I'm told, the darkest period of the night is
right before
really just before dawn, just before you have this outbreak of glory and beauty and sunshine and light and everything. It gets the darkest. And I think that's where we're in Dominica. I think we are at the darkest point of our existence in Dominica, but the light will come. This flooding of light, this beauty, this breaking through is going to come. I want to encourage the Dominican people to be patient and to continue to believe that a better day is coming. And what is happening now is we're approaching dawn. We're approaching daybreak in Dominica. And so that's what I would like to leave the listeners with tonight. Simone, I hope you can bring us back some other time, because there is so much to explore, so much detail to give, so many areas that we can actually go into and discuss. But I hope I made the point tonight that all is not lost, that we have what it takes. We have everything that we need in Dominica to make Dominica. Can you imagine Dominica, the nature island of the world, is not exporting water to anywhere?
Yes, and my aunt just said that we should be exporting water. Absolutely.
Simone, isn't something wrong with us?
Yeah.
It's like Saudi Arabia sitting on its oil and not exporting it.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. Right. We have to find a way to fix that. So, and as I said, it's not rocket science. It's not difficult to do. What you need is a good marketing campaign, and you don't even have to spend as much as the marketing budget I saw for this new hotel, set of scammers and cheats. It costs a lot less than that. What you need is a good marketing campaign, and you produce. So Simone, we can do those things. Kent, we can do those things. You're currently on island. You see, you feel, you understand what is going on. And I think, it's really up to us, the people of Dominica, to decide our future. And I hope that we can decide that future, Simone, for ourselves.
Right, and I don't want to get in trouble with showing, so we got to get out of here. But I want to thank you, Thomson, and thank Kent as well. He dropped off as well. But, I think we are seeing the beginning of the movement, because for far too long we've been waiting on government policies, national policies that are not coming together. So I think what we're seeing is the groundswell of NJAM and the work that I do with Push Past 10 to kind of create our own economies. And so we will continue to tap into our expertise of our Dominicans, brothers and sisters at home and abroad, to do the work ourselves. That's what it comes down to in a nutshell. So I want to thank the audience on Facebook. Unfortunately, we were not able to take your calls this evening, but I also want to acknowledge that Bernard Arlene gave a great post on Facebook. Juliana James, thank you for being here. So, as the world continues to evolve and rapidly change, we will continue to explore everything that is changing around us, the industries, the businesses, the opportunities, and I always think that where there is financial independence, there is independence for so many other decisions in our life, when we are not relying on people to be able to sustain us. So if we're able to provide financial independence to our brothers and sisters, then I think it opens them up to make other important decisions in their lives. So we will continue to explore concrete and practical economic opportunities, financial independence, and provide hope and inspiration, especially for our young people. And again, Thomson, I want to invite you and Kent and probably Ronald to join us again, because we didn't even have an opportunity to talk about the economies for the youth unemployment, which is rampant in Dominica. So we have so much more to talk about. So I hope that everyone will join us right here on Q95 each and every other Wednesday to be a part of the conversation as we continue to build hope and build the economy of Dominica and do the job ourselves. So don't forget, keep it locked to Q95, the big station for the best in programming, and to jump on Q95DA.com for past episodes and all the wonderful programming that we offer you here. Don't forget to follow Wise QFM on Facebook as well as Push Past 10. And for more information of how we're continuing to build our international village, build our global community of Dominicans who are ready to do the work, we encourage you to visit pushpast10.com. And with that, we say a pleasant good evening to everyone. Thank you for being here. I hope I'm not in trouble with showing Marina Charles. Oh, Bruno, until we see you guys again next year, thank you and have yourself a wonderful evening. Take care. Thank you, Thomson.
Thank you, Simone. Good night.
Right. Thank you, Lambi. Have a good night.
Joe! Rastafari.